commend the office for doing the work that they do.
Eugenie Sage.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Thank you. I'm very pleased to stand and support the Ombudsmen Cost Recovery Amendment Bill. And I think the speeches we've heard from government members show a fundamental misunderstanding of the bill and what it will achieve. Now, as the Chief Ombudsman, Peter Bothier, recently described the Official Information Act as the linchpin of openness and accountability. Yet under this government, we have seen a politicisation of the Act. We have seen the Prime Minister describing how its ministers will help ensure that departments wait until the 20-day deadline for the release of official information just to slow down the whole system. We've seen large redactions in documents that are released. We have seen journalists, members of the opposition, routinely denied information. And when the former Chief Ombudsman, Dame Beverly Wakeham, did her report, Not a Game of Hide and Seek, in December 2015, she concluded that there was nothing fundamentally wrong with the Official Information Act, but it was the way in which the Act was being executed that was the problem, that there was gaming of the OIA going on, that departments were putting off releasing information until that 20-day period, that information wasn't being provided in a timely way. And while she concluded that there was no evidence of direct political interference, there was certainly an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust amongst those working with the Official Information Act, both inside and outside the government. And it has been this problem which this bill will actually go some way to redress, because it's been quite surprising that the government has rejected the notion of the Ombudsman's Office being able to recover costs from government agencies, because, of course, under the Resource Management Act, Nick Smith has changed that Act so that councils have to discount the costs of processing resource consents to applicants if they exceed the 20-day processing time that is set out in the Act. So, can I quote the Minister for the Environment, that I know some councils are uncomfortable with these financial penalties for lateness, but if it's good enough for the goose, it's good enough for the gander. Councils put penalties on rates if they are paid late, so it's fair enough that when councils are late, they too face financial penalties. So if this government has put in place penalties on councils when they are late in processing resource consents under the RMA, why isn't it supporting this bill, which will do something similar in allowing the Ombudsman's Office to recover costs from government agencies when they miss that 20-day deadline, which is in the Official Information Act, to ensure that information is provided in a timely way? Because the presumption at the heart of the Official Information Act is that information should be released unless its release is prejudicial to New Zealand's security, an individual's personal privacy, a company's commercial position, and those constitutional conventions which protect free and frank advice by officials to ministers. But it is the government, in terms of undermining that presumption that information should be released, by politicising the way in which the Act is implemented, by ensuring that chief executives and senior staff game the system effectively by delaying release and putting those big slabs of blackness through documents that are eventually released. So yes, this is a small step. Yes, the Ombudsman's Office is making substantial progress in reducing its backlog of complaints, but this bill is about ensuring that government agencies comply with the timelines in the Act. It's not, as members opposite have tried to suggest, dealing with the issue of how the Ombudsman's Office is actually performing, because with that extra funding that the Parliament voted, the Office has been able to employ additional staff and has been able to get on top of the backlog. But, Mr Speaker, there are still problems. In terms of government agencies, the statistics that were released for the first time earlier this year about compliance with the Act did show that at least a quarter of government agencies weren't able to provide official information on time for at least 80% of the time. So that's a quarter of government agencies aren't meeting the deadlines under the Act So this bill will go some way to encouraging them to do that by them having to ensure that the Ombudsman's Office can recover costs.
Brett Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.